know the story now where Cedric Golden was at the press conference, works for the Austin American-Statesman, and joins us on 365 Sports. Was this just a savage move by Chris Del Conte?
You've been reading Golden, Smoke, because I used exactly that term.
I haven't read it yet. Okay, yeah.
I called him an absolute savage in the nicest sense of the word. I mean, he's a don. He's a boss, and he doesn't care if he hurt your feelings when he took your coach. I mean, isn't it brutal? You think the season ends, and this is like, you think you're on good terms with your girl. You may have had a little argument, but everything's good, and you're at the mall the next day. You see her walking in a Foot Locker with the one guy you hate, and she's happy, and they're hand in hand, and there's nothing you can do about it. Man, the Aggies are stewing in it, and they are out for blood. But guess what? I don't think Texas cares. They didn't care when they left the Big 12 with Oklahoma, and I know they don't care now that they've taken maybe the best baseball coach in the country.
Cedric, there is the narrative from Chris Del Conte and Jim Schlossnagle is that this just came up after the game was over. I don't necessarily believe that. I know it's not something that they can just say, like, yeah, we've been working on this for months, but this happened really fast with everybody on the coaching staff being ready to go if it just happened in about 15 hours.
What are you trying to say, Paul Catalina? What are you trying to say? Quit beating around the bush.
I'm saying that they've had this in the works.
Are you trying to tell me that when Jim Schlossnagle laid his head down Monday night, that before he went to sleep, he went, I'm going to be coaching next season?
No, I'm going to tell you he did that like 4 days before that.
You can't prove it, but if you're telling me that they cooked this thing up way beforehand, I would tend to agree with you. They talk all the time. You don't think they talked after Texas lost 16-7 to Rio Grande Valley? You don't think they had some chats after that? You don't think they talked when the Aggies came in here and worked them 9-2 on a Tuesday night? Of course they did. And they're old buddies, and they worked together, and they were 4 of his 5 College World Series appearances at TCU came with CDC as his athletic director. And so it pains me to say it, but I just don't see how this all just came together in a span of 12 hours. It did not. It did not. I think that he was going to be the guy. I wrote it a day before CDC hired him that he was the right choice. And there's not a graceful exit. It's polarizing, and I thought it was akin to a 3,000-pound bull trying to tiptoe out of a china shop. There's going to be some furniture being knocked over, and people in College Station noticed it. And one more thing, guys, let's quit trying to hold these coaches up to some standard.
Yeah.
Let's quit equating salary with some kind of honor. This is not Mother Teresa serving starving kids on the streets of Calcutta. This is America. These are capitalists, and they want money. And for me, if someone offered me double my salary, I would stop talking in the middle of this sentence and head to the bank because it's America, and we all want more. He's going to probably make upwards of $3 million a year. Probably could have made it at Texas A&M, but he wanted to work with the person that he respects the most as an AD, and that's Del Conte.
Cedric, I guess you can argue over the timing of the announcement about David Pierce's firing being on the day of the national championship game and all that created. But then by the end of the night, the story was Schlossnagle and his interaction with, I guess, a reporter whose name we now all know, Richard Zane, who asked him about the job opening. I guess we can debate on whether either one of those handlings were right or wrong or not. But in particular with the response he had, I know he didn't have a lot of room or a lot of options in terms of what he could say, but how do you think maybe that could have been handled differently, and how do you feel like he addressed that reporter in today and mentioning him? How do you feel like that went over?
Craig, I believe in my heart of hearts that he handled that poorly. And all you had to say is, man, I'm not talking about that tonight. We just lost. That's all you had to say.
Yeah.
And then 24 hours later, you're bailing on a team that just lost in the championship game on players that sold it out for you. He did publicly apologize. It is my hope that he will contact Richard Zane personally and apologize. I've known Schloss for years. I get along well with him. He's been on my podcast with Kirk Bowles, and we have a good time chopping it up. It wasn't a great way to handle it. It reminded me of Roy Williams when they lost. Texas made it to the Final Four in 2003 and lost to Carmelo Anthony in Syracuse. And then in the championship game, Carmelo and company beat Roy Williams in Kansas 81-78. After that game, a reporter asked Roy Williams about the North Carolina opening. And Roy Williams goes, I could give a you-know-what about Carolina right now. I just care about those.
Did we lose him, Paul?
It didn't look like it. Hold on.
Yeah, watch the mic. We'll see if we can reestablish. That was an interesting story. I'm looking forward to what he had to say with Roy Williams at KU and eventually was North Carolina.
Sorry, I could not hold that back, and the camera happened to be on me. I could not stop that one.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Gosh. Bless you, Craig. Thank you, guys.
That's why when we redo this, we need to get the cough.
Yes,
button,
that would be nice.
Cough clicker, whatever it might be. So we're waiting to get reestablished with Cedric Golden. Cedric hasn't. He's said what I think we've discussed as far as the timeline of when it all began, how he handled the Richard Zane question, and really the dagger savage of what was able to be done by getting this accomplished in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. The best handling, and I was asking this earlier, would have been to say, like, guys, I'm not talking about that tonight. Now, that would have still led everybody to go, oh, sure. Well, he's definitely going then. But it still would have probably left enough vague room to think, well, yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to talk about it tonight. Although I'm sure that wouldn't have, helped Aggies sleep any better of like, well, just say no if you're not going to take it, right? But still, it's very interesting to dig into this one. It's a fascinating story that, like I said earlier, is going to go down in the college football folk tales book. When the tales from history of college football, this is going to have its own little entry in that, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know if I just texted myself. He's not answering, Paul?
No, I got him. He's right here.
Oh, okay. All right, good. I thought he basically exactly did. He got an offer twice the size of his money.
Man, I'm going to tell you, something about an iPhone 7.
No, sometimes it does. Okay. I forgot where we were.
Roy Williams. He was talking about Roy Williams.
Finish up that story about the game after they lost to Carmelo in Syracuse.
So they lose by 3 points to Syracuse, and after the game, a reporter asked Roy Williams about the North Carolina opening, and he goes, "I could give a rat's what about North Carolina. I just care about these kids in that locker room. They're hurting, and I love them." 1 week later, Roy Williams is the head coach of North Carolina. So this is what these guys do, and it's coaching is not. This is not new. This is not the new Rockne era. These guys are millionaires, and they want more millions. And if you can find a guy that has your back and can support you in your recruiting and in this NIL thing, the buying of players, why wouldn't you want that? I'm not saying he didn't have it at A&M, but him and Del Conte are like best friends. So I felt like it was a move that he was going to make if he could make it.
Cedric, obviously, a lot of players are in the portal from A&M right now. The key, like the heart of their lineup, essentially going. Do you feel all those guys will go with Jim Schlossnagle, or do you think that there might be some that scatter elsewhere?
Man, I don't even know. I know that if they're not mad at him, they'll probably they'll probably come to play for him. He brought his whole staff with him, and that's going to make the 2026 series in College Station even juicier. Katie barred the door for this fall, Thanksgiving weekend. I would advise the Texas bus driver to go 10 miles an hour under the speed limit. And, it's not just a university that's upset with Schloss. It's a whole city. It's a whole Aggie nation. Those people are broken. And Big Brother did it to them again. He did. And if this isn't a reminder of how Texas views Texas A&M, announcing David Pierce's firing on the day of the championship game, really? Of all days to announce it, it was crazy. And so I think Chris Del Conte just doesn't care about perception, especially perceptions in College Station. He believes that he's got the formula to put Texas back on top in the major sports, football, basketball, and baseball. And from what I'm seeing, he's making all the right moves. If you told me that Schlossnagle would be coaching Texas this time next year, I would tell you that's a huge upgrade over a very good baseball coach in David Pierce.
Yeah, Del Conte seems to be the right leadership that they had been missing for a while, and also the right time, to really flex all of Texas's muscle with the resources that they have in this era where those are a lot more valuable, not so much behind the scenes, but, they're working with a lot of ammo right now, Cedric, and he's hired a bunch of coaches at this point. I know there's been other hires this offseason, in golf, for example, but who's on staff now looking at Chris Del Conte basically handpicking elite coach after elite coach and delivering the message of, we're going to be the best at everything? Who's looking over their shoulder and needing to perform, do you feel like, amongst the Texas sports now moving forward that haven't been addressed lately?
What sports on campus are looking over their shoulder?
Yeah, what coaches are like, well, I better step my game up because there's an elite bar that must be met, and that's been very clear by how Del Conte's maneuvered.
That's a great question, but they just won the Learfield Directors Cup for the third time in 4 years, so they're performing well in all sports. They even won rowing national championship. Who knew they had rowing? They won in rowing national championship. They've won in women's tennis. They won in men's and women's track. 3 straight Elite Eights from Vic Schaefer. Rodney Terry, 2 straight Elite Eights. So it's going. Now, I will say this, guys. Between 01 and 05, Texas had it going. They were rolling. 2 Rose Bowl wins, a national championship for Mac, 2 national championships in 4 years for Augie Garrido, 2 Final Four appearances in 03 for the men and the women. And but the difference now is those Olympic sports are the ones leading the charge right now. What Del Conte's trying to do is to get those big revenue-producing sports, football, which took a major step with the CFP appearance under Steve Sarkisian, basketball with Rodney Terry, baseball with Jim Schlossnagle. Those are the sports that bring in the big crowds and bring in the big money. Those are the sports that need to be barking the loudest. Those are the ones. And I know, speaking of barking, I know Pitbull's coming in here for that SEC celebration in a few days, but the biggest dog in Austin is Chris Del Conte. He's making all the right moves, guys.
Cedric, I'm going to ask you a question. I hope it makes sense to you. As you know,
Yes,
columnists that cover Texas, but you do more than that, whoever it might be. But there also have been stories written about other programs who have been through some tough times and or maybe a little greasy, that even Austin media has gotten involved with columns or opinion pieces. Do you think anybody in Austin has the you-know-whats? And I think you're probably one of the few that would write a story that at maybe even the possibility of, man, this is not really a great look. It needs to be done a little bit better.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I know people in College Station have written it today. I think the new way of doing business is more financial. I'd love to say that it's all about going into mom and dad's living room and saying, we're going to take care of your kid for the next 4 years and he's going to get a degree and blah, blah, blah. That game has changed. when they had the first official visiting day for football players a couple of weeks ago, they had 6 Lamborghinis parked at the facility, engines revving. So it's changed. It's unapologetic. The romanticist in me would love to go back to a simpler time when it was just about education and blah blah blah. But even then, guys are getting paid under the table. We all know that's spooky. I think the whole way of doing business, the model, is what really drove Nick Saban out of college football. He knew that even though he's the best coach and the best recruiter the game has ever seen, that he wouldn't be able to deal with the big money of a Texas, of a Notre Dame, of a Texas A&M, of a Michigan. Those alumni bases are bigger and better and have more dollars. And I think he got out while the getting was good. Is it slimy? It's not exactly the most honorable era we live in, but I think that the NCAA and the athletic directors and the presidents opened up this can of worms when they didn't put restrictions on NIL. And all that's happened now is it's trickled down to the coaches. And it's also made it to where coaches are getting fired a lot quicker because they know that another coach who might be able to make better deals with these players is there waiting in the wings. So I think that I've written some less than flattering pieces about Chris Del Conte. I called him a liar when he fired Tom Herman and hired Sarkisian after saying Herman would be his coach the next year. We had a not so civil discussion after that. I also wrote that the Oklahoma move with Texas to the SEC was a back alley deal that was handled poorly. There's a way to do things, and I didn't think that was the way to do it. They haven't broken any rules. It's cutthroat. It's not pretty, but it's the world that we live in now.
Yep. So in July of 2021, when Texas and Oklahoma, when that story by Brent Zerneman shocked everybody, shook college football's landscape, even college athletics, I would think at that time Oklahoma was still ahead of Texas in a lot of ways. Maybe not overall athletic department, but in football, which is really what matters.
Yes, sir.
And then about that time, you start to see changes in college athletics with the NIL, transfer portal, et cetera. Do you feel like the timing of that could not have been more perfect for Texas to perhaps be in a better spot now on July 1st than people thought when that story became real?
It's a great question, and I think you're spot on, David. I think that Texas, when they hired Sark, hired a guy that they hoped would lead them to special places, but he had a checkered history. I mean, it didn't end well in USC for well-documented reasons. He was a good assistant, but he hadn't set the world on fire just yet. And so when they went 5-7, the question marks started. But then NIL shows up, and all of a sudden, the one of the most richest athletic departments in all of college athletics had free reign to spend what they wanted to spend to get the athletes they needed to team with the coaches. And I think in essence, that's where they passed Oklahoma. And that's why I think that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the SEC. Are they going to go in there and set that thing on fire? I don't know. But they've got a coach with 3 straight top 5 recruiting classes, and they've got Fort Knox at their disposal. And kids like money. And guess who else likes money, guys? The parents of the kids, many of whom are not from great backgrounds financially. So to be able to help mom and dad out and play at Texas and know you're going to be in the SEC, I think that the timing could not have been perfect. I don't know that it's lightning in a bottle, but I think a lot of things are falling into place for Texas, and they're going into the SEC totally. They're going to be respectful of who they're playing. You can't help but be. It's Georgia, it's Alabama, it's LSU, it's A&M, it's Florida, it's Tennessee, but they're not afraid because they're good in recruiting and they're good at the bank. And right now in 2024, Those are the two most important parts of building a winner.
Thanks for your time, Cedric. Appreciate it. Great stuff. Maybe tomorrow will be a little more normalcy, but of course we'll watch how the transfer portal lights up everyone's roster. Anything else, Craig or Paul? Nope. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Cedric Golden, Austin American-Statesman, with us here on